Every year, the spookiest of months comes and goes, and every year I got nothing to show for it. I always wanted to do something special for October ever since I started this channel, and it just never seems to pan out. So, while facing that very same fate again in 2024, I said enough. I have to start somewhere, no matter how small. But what could I actually do? A few days back, I was browsing the sulfurous hell pit known as Twitter.com when I happened upon an interesting little trailer.
I spent the last 2 years of my life making a gardening game. It's normal. Experience the Dutch countryside. Make friends. There's lots to discover. So please check out Grunt. It will launch on Friday.
Suffice to say, I was intrigued. So fast forward a couple days and the thought randomly crossed my mind. Hey, shouldn't that Dutch gardening game be out by now? And it was, so I just bought it. Now, I don't normally do that. Usually I need a personal recommendation or at least general word of mouth, but the game seemed compelling, so I decided to take the plunge. As a result, I was going completely blind with no expectations whatsoever. Having played it now, I believe that is the best way to experience Grün. But if you need a bit more convincing or are simply interested in the contents of this video, well, here goes. The first thing you notice about Grün is the sound design. It's really good. There's an immediate understanding that something's a little off, and the game takes a while before it fully tips its hand in this regard. The game starts by you getting off the bus. Hired as the new gardener for the house just across that bridge, it's your job to have the garden clean and tended to before Monday rolls around. The game works on a fixed time frame, so you have to fit every task into those 2 days. The main source of direction will be these Polaroids scattered around the world, depicting locations, moments, and items that need to be discovered. After you cross over, you are introduced to the garden and your first tool, the shears. These are used to cut grass and trim the hedges, though you soon find that you'll need more than that to complete your gardening tasks. The actual gameplay of gardening is pretty fun and satisfying, and it doesn't get old thanks to how gradually the mechanics are introduced. Once you clean up a certain percentage of the garden, a magpie appears next to the shed, and with it a little note seemingly belonging to the previous gardener. Within it are a few hints pointing to the locations of the remaining tools, which you promptly set out to retrieve. Soon, however, you realize there might be someone watching you. Leaving the garden brings you onto the church grounds, which you find to be in need of gardening as well. The church seems to be closed indefinitely for some reason, though reviewing a nearby Polaroid suggests it might just have odd opening hours. And after a bit of gardening, you somehow find a doorknob belonging to the back door of the church. At this point, it's clear that something's wrong. There is a skeleton and a ghost, and the door out of the catacombs somehow leads to the cornfield. Regarding the last point, the use of bigger on the inside interiors is especially noteworthy in Grün, as it's used to great effect and implemented pretty much flawlessly both in terms of gameplay and the technical execution. Before we move on narratively, I think it's high time I talk about the visuals. It's no secret indie games often adopt sort of low-res, low-poly art styles. The more detail you choose to have, the more time and money you need to spend in order to earnestly maintain that standard. But even within a limited scope, there is a need for consistency, and it can be especially hard to distinguish yourself visually within those confines while maintaining that level of quality. I'm happy to report that Grün manages both, and the mixture of the odd and simplified massively props up the atmosphere. I was a little afraid the filter would hurt my eyes at first, but it was fine, although you may want to turn down the brightness a bit if you're in a dark room. The environments, while not particularly huge, are all distinct, and most importantly, thematically significant. Not to mention they make up for size with sheer variety. The ever-present swaying grass helps to keep things lively, and the use of fog and changes in lighting all work towards a lasting impression. Now that we've gotten to a point where I can't avoid talking about the spooky parts any longer, I'm issuing one last warning to go ahead and get yourself a copy of Grün. I highly recommend it as a little spooky treat for this year's spooky month. You're not going? Oh, that's not how it's supposed to be in the script. Well, anyway, it turns out the previous gardener is dead, there are evil spirits about, and the soul of your employer is trapped by said spirits and needs your help. The game has a total of 11 endings, with most of them being different ways to die. You soon find there are some time-sensitive tasks that are required to get the good ending, and as far as I'm aware, you can do every quest in a single run, though maybe I just suck. Some of the things you do have no bearing on the main story and simply result in fun little moments that flesh out the vibe, while others are required to access other parts of the world. In a similar vein, there are various shortcuts to uncover, and after a few attempts, you'll learn how to get around quite fast. I enjoyed collecting everything and understood the assignment more often than not, though I did get stuck at one point and had to look up a hint to get the ball rolling again. If I had to give one critique to Gurun, it's that it's fairly light on the lore, opting instead for the air of mystery, which is by no means bad, but there were times where I felt like some imagery could use a bit more context. Honestly, I'm just a sucker for lore in these kinds of games. Also, the main ending is a bit goofy towards the climax and breaks away from the tone ever so slightly, but the pace and spectacle still manages to hold it together. I know all this may seem a bit negative, but these are more like little personal suggestions for an already great project. Gurun doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it doesn't need to. That's not the point. It's just a fun, fully realized experience that fills its format and doesn't overstay its welcome. For me, it's the perfect game to enjoy in 1 or 2 sessions over the weekend. And most importantly, it proves that aiming for consistency in all of its aspects is a valuable trait for indies, and that at any scope, it can elevate an already inspired idea. Throughout this video, I tried to spoil as little as possible in the way of puzzles, scares, and cool moments in general, so hopefully even those who watched all the way through will have a pleasant time should they decide to give Gurun a go. I for one loved it, and I'm looking forward to whatever future projects Tom and Sockpop decide to pursue. Don't forget to check out Gurun on Steam, and thank you for watching.